Welcome to Under the Stars with Garima Heath, coming to you from Austin, Texas. Today, my guest is the Good Food Fighter. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've been looking forward to this interview for a while now. Tell us your mission. Why the costume? What are you trying to do?
I am trying to fight toxins in the food supply. That's my mission. I'm a consumer advocate, so I'm trying to educate consumers, people, everyone about what's really in the food that they're eating, because most people don't know. They just think it's normal food, but they don't understand how it was grown, what the ingredients are, or really what they're eating. And there's a lot of toxic stuff in your food, and it shows up in the form of all kinds of diseases. It manifests differently for everyone, but it leads to inflammation in your body, which leads to disease. So I see this all around me. I'm constantly finding out that a friend here and a friend there has cancer, people who are really young, all kinds of chronic illnesses and autoimmune conditions. And I know a lot of it comes from the food because we're eating a really adulterated food that wasn't available 10, 20, 30 years ago. Our grandparents didn't have access to this kind of food. So it really makes a difference what you eat.
I totally 100% agree. Yeah, yes. Tell us about your journey. How did you get to this state of consciousness about it?
Well, I grew up with a mother who was very conscious about ingredients in food. She read Prevention magazine. She was kind of before her time. And so I grew up in a house where there was brown rice instead of white rice, where there was romaine lettuce instead of iceberg, where she would never allow Wonder Bread to come through the front door. In fact, when I was a kid, I remember I used to sneak cookies and things into the shopping cart and distract her at checkout. And then when we got to the house, I would hide them because we didn't have sugary stuff in the house. We didn't have fried food. So I grew up with a lot of good salads and just really wholesome, pure ingredients because my mother was looking after that. Then, of course, I went off to college and I did whatever I wanted. And, so I ate whatever. And then I went off and lived my life. And I was in San Francisco and just buying what I thought was good food, fruits and vegetables. I always avoided preservatives. I picked up ingredients, products, and looked at their ingredients all the time. And so if it didn't have dyes and preservatives and fillers, I thought it was good food. Mm-hmm. So I remember my mother begging me to eat organic food because she knew that I was not. And I continued to not eat it because I was lazy. And
you're a very smart mother.
I was also eating pasta all the time. And then one day I got cancer. So that was kind of a wake-up call. Thyroid cancer, didn't know where it came from. But when you get this kind of jolt, I think it's a wake-up call to start evaluating your exposures to different things that might be a source. So that happened, and my diet evolved. Then I had a baby who had a lot of digestive issues, and so I started looking for help, naturopaths and other holistic health experts, since conventional doctors weren't really able to help me or him. And that path led to some
What kind of digestive issues?
He had a lot of reflux and GERD and possibly heartburn, just a lot of stomach issues. He used to wake up with croup in the middle of the night and he couldn't breathe. I realized that was from the milk that I was giving him. So all kinds of issues when they cropped up, then I would do research. I would reach out to people who could provide information, and my learning curve was steep, and I was unrelenting in my search to help heal him. And then as time went on, I started noticing when I had really cleaned up the foods that I was giving my son, it really hurt my heart to see other kids being given things that I knew could be causing all kinds of problems. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you can't say, hey, excuse me, I just want to mention that this food that you're giving your kid is kind of hurting him. So you can't say that. And it would really frustrate me because all I want to do is help. All I want to do is educate without having to, bring on people's defenses and make parents feel like bad parents because after all, we're all on a journey. We're all doing the best we can. So I thought, well, if I start a blog, then I can just put all my information there that I've collected and people can come and read it who are interested. And I can, help cajole people into going to my blog, and hopefully it'll start to make a difference and people can learn at their own speed and take little steps and learn about different things that interest them about feeding their kids. So I kind of consider my blog to be an anti-cancer blog, a blog to help parents feed their children better, and just an overall what's in your food, what do you not know, and how I can help you get on a path to better health through food.
You're starting a movement, and my path was very similar after I had kids. That's when the learning curve really ramped up for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Which it tells you that that's what happens when you eat the American diet. So the one subject we wanted to touch upon was oranges and how they're produced in California using gas and oil wastewater, how they're irrigated. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So a lot of parents think one of the easiest, most portable, delicious snacks they can give their kids are these mandarins that are
I do
in the stores everywhere. Full of vitamin C, just a really good, rich food. So I've done some research, and it turns out that most of them are grown in California, and most of the citrus grown in California is grown with oil and gas wastewater. So the reason for this is because California is running out of water. Nestle is siphoning off a lot of the groundwater for their bottled water. So California is really in a bind. Meanwhile, there's a lot of drilling going on there too, a lot of oil. So companies came up with this ingenious idea. When the oil comes up from underground, it brings with it tons of water. And this water has been in contact with the oil over time with other contaminants underground. So it's pulled up. Also, a lot of contaminants are used in the drilling process, like into that water goes corrosion inhibitors and all kinds of other additives and things to, successfully do this operation. So now we have all this water that's come up from underground, and these companies who are drilling need to get rid of it. So in the past, what they've done is they've actually injected it back into the ground, and that costs them money. But what doesn't cost them money? Selling that water to farmers to irrigate their crops.
Makes them money.
Yeah. So instead of paying money, they make money. So what they do is they send this water off to a facility that cleans it, and then it's sold to farmers. Is there any FDA oversight, supervision, water quality testing? Well, they say there is, but it turns out from third-party testing that really a lot of contaminants make it into the irrigated water, and that water makes it into
Do you know
orange.
what kind of contaminants?
Yeah, the ones that I was talking about.
Okay.
So we don't know. A lot of what these companies are using fall into a category of proprietary blend, and so they don't actually have to disclose everything that's going into this water. But we do know there are a lot of hydrocarbons and other additives and corrosion inhibitors, like I mentioned. And also the water has been in contact with this gas that's been underground over time. So it's really not pure water at all. And even the organic standards do not mandate testing for water quality. So your organic produce needs to be grown in a certain kind of soil, but the kind of water that's used to irrigate it does not have to go through any kind of standards. And that's why farmers are getting away with using this kind of water even on organic produce. So it's in all the conventional produce, and it's also in the organic produce. So now when I walk into my grocery store, I ask them for oranges that don't come from California, because it's not all oranges in California, but it's hard to figure out which ones they are. We know it's halo oranges. That has been established. Even on the wonderful company's website, they acknowledge that they use something called produced water, and they say it's as clean as can be and perfectly safe. So we know that the halos, which are these little mandarins, contain it. What other oranges or citrus contain it, it's not certain. So that's why I'm getting my my citrus locally.
So this
for
is
now.
something that would totally go under the radar. You wouldn't be able to tell from the smell or taste of the like the orange.
No,
or
you
the
wouldn't be
hill.
able to
Yeah.
tell. And there's a lawsuit now going on. So things have ramped up. And there are other companies out there who are trying to raise awareness in consumers um, because outrage is sometimes the only thing that leads to change.
Yeah, what about? I mean, I've bought the Halo oranges. I have. They're
Hmm.
very sweet. But I've also bought Sumo mandarins, which you can peel off really easily.
Hmm.
And I don't know if they come from Japan, but they're 4 times more expensive. But they are amazingly delicious. So I'm hoping they don't come from California now.
Yeah, just remember to ask.
Yeah.
And likely the people who are working in the store won't know anything about this issue. All they'll know is whether or not it came from California, because that they can probably find out.
Yeah. So that's a great tip. The other subject I want to talk about was how to pick fish, and this is something that every single time I buy fish, I think buying wild is better versus farmed. But tell us about how we should pick farmed or wild fish.
Okay, so my journey was 10 years ago when I moved to Austin. I went to Whole Foods. I was very excited. I had heard or read that they get food straight from the dock, so it's as fresh as can be. They don't need to freeze in transit, and they
Mhm.
certainly don't store in a warehouse. So I would go to Whole Foods, and from my conversations with other health experts, I had developed sort of my routine of what to ask. So I would ask, what's wild, fresh, and came in today? And they would find me what fit that criteria the best. Um, and over time, I was talking to the people who worked at the fish counter. And it came out that really most wild fish are living in a cesspool of toxins because the ocean is just so badly polluted. So you're not just talking about mercury, but you're talking about, plastic, which fish eat, and just all kinds of other garbage and other things in the ocean. So a guy who worked for Whole Foods told me that wild fish are swimming in waters that have chemicals that resemble the ingredient list of my shampoo bottle.
Mhm.
So that got me thinking. And I thought, yeah, I don't think I want that. And so I switched to farm fish. So then I bought farm fish for many, 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 many years until recently. I was at a convention about food and healthy food, paleo convention, and I found out more about farm fish. And then I started doing a ton of research. So it turns out that farm fish are kept, for the most part, uh, closely packed into pens that actually sit in the ocean. It's sort of like your steamer and the way it sits in a pot. So that's what it's like, and they are interacting with the wild populations. So to keep the fish from getting sick and contracting diseases and pathogens, because they're being held in very close quarters, lots has to be done. They get sea lice very easily.
Mhm.
Then chemicals have to be used to wash that sea lice off.
Mhm.
They're also being fed a diet that usually includes GMOs. And
They're fed soy and things that completely throw off the essential fatty acids that you're supposedly getting from them.
exactly. So they're not getting a natural diet, and that affects their nutritional profile. And they're also contaminating and actually decimating wild populations of fish. The way they do this is they escape from their pens. This happens all the time. And they either mate with wild fish. There's actually been new DNA that's turned up because of this. And because most of them have sea lice on them, they infect wild populations of fish who then die. So if a fish outside this pen gets sea lice, they're not going to be treated by chemicals because they're not in the pen, and they will die. The lice will eventually kill them.
So it's a cesspool of disease.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And there have been collapses of fish farms, which have resulted in hundreds of thousands of farm fish making their way into the wild population. So yeah, a lot of really pure, pristine areas of the world, like around Scotland and Alaska, wild populations are disappearing, especially salmon, which are a very popular fish. So I found a terrific source for really, really pure salmon, and other fish too, all kinds of fish, including sardines and fish eggs, So
That was my next question. What do we do if we can't buy farmed, if we can't buy wild? What do
right.
we do?
So yes, I want to make it convenient for people because nobody has all day long to do research like I spend all my days. So I'm trying to provide to people an easy solution, a quick solution, something hopefully not too expensive, but whatever it is, it's a lot less expensive than being sick and having sick children. So I did found a company called Vital Choice. They are in the Northwest, and they ship to you. So you just go online, and they've been very well vetted. I've done a lot of research, and a lot of the very well-respected health gurus know about this company, and they have a lot of information on their website. And I, interrogated them, and so because it's a company of previous fishermen, they know really how to get access to areas that are sort of not accessible to big industrial operations. So they can find the least polluted areas, and they are careful to catch the healthiest fish. They flash freeze immediately to lock in the nutrition, the flavor and freshness. And their customer service is fantastic. If you don't like anything, they'll take it back, they'll refund you. So I would just encourage everyone to give it a try just once. And I actually was able to get them to deliver a discount promotion to my readers. So it's on my website, goodfoodfighter.com, under my article on wild versus farm fish.
A 15% off discount
15% off, that's right.
on the first order. So you order from their website, and then they send you frozen fish.
That's right.
In
So
the
it's all
mail.
frozen.
Okay. And then you keep it as long as you need, and you get to choose various varieties, or they just
Yeah, they have a huge range. And they also sell other products which are totally organic and well-sourced as well, which is a good litmus test for a company. So it's not just one or two great products and then, a lot of crap. Everything they sell meets a really high standard. So I'm very excited to have found them.
And their prices are comparable, or they're a little higher? Or?
The prices are comparable to what you would find in a higher-end grocery store like Whole Foods, or for us in Austin, Wheatsville Co-op. So if you go to your standard conventional grocery store, the prices will be a lot lower, but then again, you get what you pay for, and that fish is really not going to be good quality. So yes, I think it's a reasonable price for what you get, definitely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be a lot more careful buying fish now.
Who would know, right? I mean, we just don't suspect that there's so many chemicals, so many problems with the things that we're eating that just look like normal food.
I mean, is there anything I can buy at Whole Foods that, whether it's farmed or wild, none of it is safe, pretty much?
I think that the fish that comes from Alaska is probably your best bet. But then again, some farm-raised fish may be done in a way that's more sustainable, because it is possible, it's just not the norm. So you just have to ask a lot of questions. So that's one thing I encourage of my readers: just ask. It can't hurt you, and you'll learn.
And they may not always have the answers right there.
That's true.
Yeah. My worry now is that Vital Choice, that they will, enough people will build a demand that they will run out of supply. So that's my worry.
Well, they've been at it for 20 years, so they've really figured out how to do it well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. And then I also wanted to touch upon this article you wrote on your blog about oregano oil, and how to use it for fighting colds and flus, and how can you tell us about how to use oregano oil as an antiviral, as an anti-everything?
Yeah, so I consider oregano to be the anti-everything. I just sort of coined that. It's so funny because it's an antifungal, an antiviral, antibacterial, and even has been shown to have some anti-cancerous properties, some anti-cancerous benefits. And it's anti-allergenic, so it can help with season allergies. It's really an amazing essential oil, and it's one of the strongest, most powerful ones. So you have to do your research, use it carefully, test it on yourself. Every body reacts differently, and the most potent essential oils should never be used straight. So you dilute them either in an oil like coconut oil or almond oil, or you um, put them in a mister and then diffuse them in your space. So there are a lot of different ways.
When you dilute it in oil, what is the purpose? Would you apply that to your skin or topically or?
Yeah, so my son right now has a wound that's having trouble healing. I don't know if it's actually, I can't tell what it is. It doesn't look like a regular pimple, and it also doesn't look like a wart. But I'm using oregano oil, just a drop on it twice a day, and it's slowly going away. So that would be my essential oil of choice for wounds. Rosemary is also very helpful, as long as some other ones. Oregano for colds is very powerful. So when I get a cold, that's one of my go-tos. So I just take 1 drop of oregano oil in 8 ounces of water, and I drink it through a straw because it's so potent that it actually burns my mouth.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I'll feel it burning all around.
Even in a whole glass of water.
1 drop.
Mm-hmm.
So be very careful. Yes. And I do that like 3 times a day. So also for upper respiratory, so take a soup pot, fill it with 1 inch of water, put in a couple drops of oregano oil, and then heat it up, and then put it on simmer. Put a big towel over your head, cover the sides, and then you can breathe in, inhale. And there really are studies that show that this helps just as much as any conventional medicine out there. So
I've also dropped a few drops of whether oregano oil or eucalyptus oil in the shower, so you can inhale it as you inhale the steam. I've been doing a lot of antivirals, antibacterials, and there's also propolis, which is not an essential oil, but I also had white cedar oil, and that one I did in a drink, and just 1 drop, and it's really hard you have to get used to the taste.
Right.
Yeah.
Grapefruit seed extract is another very powerful one. That's good to fend off like problems with food poisoning. So when I went to Cuba, I took it every day. I ate anything I wanted. When I went to the Azores Islands, I took some every day, and I ate fresh fruit and vegetables. You're always told not to because you're in a place with completely different bacteria that's foreign to your body. So grapefruit seed extract is perfect for that. So that's, one of the really powerful ones. And, you can pour a couple drops in the shower. The problem with that is that it kind of diffuses pretty quickly. So that's why it's much more concentrated if you use a pot. That's how I like to do it.
Yeah. That's an old remedy with it. In North India, they would heat up chickpeas and then put them in a bowl, and then put a towel over your head and inhale the heat from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. An old remedy for colds. Tell us about your goals for 2018.
My goals for 2018 are to kick canola oil out of the food supply. So canola oil is one of the great deceits of our time.
I agree.
So it has been marketed as a healthy oil because it has a similar oil profile to olive oil. And what that means is that it's high in monosaturates. But it's also an oil that's gone through genetic modification twice. And if you look at how it was produced, there's like 19 different steps. And they use heavy chemicals like hexane, which end up in a residue in the oil. Anyway, so I have a couple of different articles that include canola oil. It's my favorite oil to talk about because I hate it so much.
Yes.
And I want to get rid of it. Yes. So, and because people don't realize it's a bad oil, everybody thinks it's healthy.
Because
oil.
It's marketed, and as long as you believe mainstream media's version of healthy nutrition, you're not going to be healthy.
Well, it's not so much mainstream media. It's the big agribusiness.
Yes.
And the big pharma. It's really that. And you can say, of course, that these companies advertise in the mainstream media, and therefore there's many conflicts of interest, but that's another story. Second is, don't give your kids fruit juice.
No fruit juice. Thank you.
So people believe that fruit is good and therefore fruit juice is good. That is not true. So if you drink a glass of fruit juice, that's like an injection of sugar into your body, what makes fruit different is that you have the fiber and the time it takes you to chew to slow down the absorption of sugar into your body.
You have the
That is not
fiber, you have vitamins, you have enzymes, and when you process fruit and extract out the sugar and the flavor, it gets highly concentrated. You have 40 grams of carbs and sugar per serving.
right.
It is not the same thing at all as eating an apple.
And the other thing is that most fruit juice is cooked. People don't realize that. If it's sitting in a bottle on a shelf, it's been pasteurized. What does pasteurization do? It destroys really most of the nutrients. So what you're left drinking is sugar. And
Yes.
the thing that kids need the least is more sugar. They need a lot less of it.
Agreed.
Factory farms. A lot of people think, nice piece of steak, USDA approved, delicious. What's not to love? What's not to love is that these animals are raised in feedlots. They are fed corn and soy,
Yes.
which are 90% genetically modified. So you're eating a GMO animal. They are locked into really close quarters in these pens where, again, diseases, pathogens are rampant. Most cows have to be sprayed down with ammonia when they're slaughtered because there's so much,
Just like
infection.
the fish are covered with sea lice,
Right.
they're covered with bacteria and
And these animals are tortured. They're not living a normal life. They're being fed food that makes them sick, and then they're given antibiotics to control the sickness. So you're really
and they're given hormones.
hormones, antibiotics, all kinds of chemicals and GMOs. So you are supporting really animal abuse by eating these animals, and also it's an assault on your own body. It's very detrimental. And the difference between eating a cow that's pastured, that's raised the way an animal is meant to eat, versus a feedlot cow is really like two completely different kinds of food.
Yeah, and a normal dairy cow's who's pastured lifespan is about 20-25 years, and one of these feedlot cows about 4 years.
They fatten them up as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
unnaturally so.
Yes.
So they suffer because they're getting fat so quickly. It's really
they
painful.
they get them repeatedly pregnant, so they produce milk, and they give them hormones, and they produce 8 times the milk that a normal cow should, and that gives them mastitis, and they have to be killed because they can't even stand. So yeah, it's horrible.
Sounds like you've been reading my articles.
No, I have. Well, I will now, but yeah, I've been reading about it all over the internet, for years. And then the canola oil, no fruit juice, no feedlot animal meat,
And no cereal.
no cereal. Thank you.
So in the 70s, when the misinformation about saturated fat was released to the general public, people started jumping off the eggs and bacon bandwagon and onto the cereal with non-fat milk bandwagon. And of course, that tracks with our increase of chronic illness and obesity in this country. There's really no nutritional benefit to cereal, and there's a lot of
It's just pure
detriment.
sugar.
Basically, it turns to glucose in your mouth immediately, so it's just like eating plain sugar. And there's been testing that has found glyphosate, which is the main ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup, which is a pesticide.
We hate Monsanto.
It's been found in quite high levels in your Cheerios. So the reason for that is that this herbicide is sprayed on wheat right before it is harvested to make it dry more quickly. So almost all the wheat out there is sprayed with this.
Yeah, and just so you know the history of that was Agent Orange. That's what they used in the Vietnam War, Roundup. And then they repackaged it as weed killer, and then they repackaged it as it's patented only as a bacterial killer. So now they spray all grains, pretty much. I mean, already grains are problematic to eat, but they spray, corn, all the major crops are sprayed with. And the problem with that is that becomes airborne. It's water soluble, glyphosate. So it goes in our water supply. So
it's in everything.
It's in everything.
We have exposures in so many ways I mean, so you really have to try hard to avoid it because you're still getting some. And we really know that any level of it is not
Even
not safe.
organic food, organic farms next to a farm that's sprayed with Roundup. It's windborne and it comes on their vegetables as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the last thing is preservatives.
I want to make one recommendation about the glyphosate. Check out Restore, because you can't help it. You will get glyphosate no matter what you do in your diet. So this is its new product. It's called Restore. It comes in a liquid form, and it helps you heal your gut lining. Basically, the only way to fight glyphosate killing, your gut lining is one single cell thick. So Restore is
Sure.
what I've been using.
Okay, good to know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last of my 5 objectives for 2018 is to get people to understand preservatives in their food. So people just think, well, of course, you have to put some preservatives in to preserve the food, but people don't spend hours and hours of research looking up what all these preservatives are.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them really have detrimental health effects. So, for example, sodium benzoate, very common preservative, actually increases the effects of ADHD in some studies. So,
not surprising.
Anyway, I talk a lot about preservatives, fillers, all kinds of extra chemicals that are added to your food.
And know about wax and silica dioxide and
even the gums, xanthan gums, lactic
gum,
acid,
yeah.
all the different acids. They all sound
food coloring.
They sound pretty innocent. They're not. Food colorings are very, very problematic for children.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them make children hyperactive. So it's important for people to know about these things, and you can really help your kids and yourself. So yeah, that's my goal.
All great goals. Awesome. And then what if you were to distill down all the wisdom you have so far? What would be the 3 pieces of advice that you would give?
I don't know if I can distill all the wisdom down into 3 pieces, but let's see, 3 things that you can do for yourself that are a good start are read the ingredients in everything that's processed. An apple doesn't have ingredients written on it, but anything in any kind of package will, and just start reading all ingredients. And if there's any ingredient you don't recognize, Google it or come to my website or email me, and I'll help you figure out if it's something that you'd rather not be eating. I think it's wise for everyone to avoid gluten. So
yes.
More and more people are being diagnosed with gluten intolerance and celiac, which are both technically different things. But gluten is known to cause inflammation. So even if you don't have an immediate reaction to it, it does not mean that it's not causing trouble for you. And also when people get sick, they don't necessarily know it's from gluten or that gluten is exacerbating their sickness. So it's just not a good food. Modern wheat is not a good food. And gluten is in all modern wheat. So just try to avoid it when you can. Now, on the other hand, things that are gluten-free are often made from other problematic foods like tapioca starch and rice syrup. These things are all even higher on the glycemic index, meaning how they spike your blood sugar, than gluten is. So the best thing to do is to try not to eat wheat, and then to try not to eat wheat substitutes either. Just try to find other food alternatives. And my website is full of them because I like to talk about that. And the last thing I would say is if you go out to eat and you're in a conventional restaurant and you've learned a lot and now you can't unknow what you know and you want to be able to enjoy your meal and you're frustrated because you know that the animals will have hormones and the greens will have pesticides and everything will be more or less contaminated. So good advice is to eat lower on the food chain. And what I typically do is I'll ask for some steamed rice. Most restaurants can whip that up. I eat white rice now because of the phytic acid and other anti-nutrients in brown rice, as well as the arsenic.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah.
So white rice is like a nothing food, but it's not as detrimental as other things. And then I would just ask for some steamed vegetables. Don't cook them with oil. If you can, just steam them gently.
And hopefully there won't be too many pesticides on.
Right. So that's what I would recommend for when you're eating out and there's no good choices. That's what I do.
Yeah, and gluten alone we could talk about for hours.
Hours.
I've done a lot of research on it. My son also has a gluten problem. He gets rashes, and he scratches them till they bleed. And as soon as we cut out the gluten, they clear up within a month.
People do not correlate all these different things that are happening to them with gluten. So that's part of the issue.
It's also the gut-brain link, because it affects his mood, and
Sure.
his like IQ drops. He becomes pre-verbal. He's intolerant. He just gets really angry, and he has a meltdown. And it's always linked to having had that piece of bread or that croissant or something that with gluten, or cake or something.
That's good information for people to know. Because oftentimes when these things happen, you don't know why.
Well, the thing with the gluten molecule is that it's a very, very large molecule. It's wrapped on itself like hundreds of times. And it's so large that it carries an electric charge. So when it goes down your gut, it's actually releasing like a cloud going over your villi in your intestine. It's releasing little zaps of electricity and killing your villi, so you cannot absorb. And also, it's such a large molecule, the enzymes in your body are not really equipped to break it down. So yeah, it's not the same gluten that the wheat they eat in France. You know, the bread is different there.
Completely different.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, gluten's so problematic. Anyway, I will close the interview, and I want to thank the Good Food Fighter for coming on my show.
It's been my pleasure to be with you today, Garima.
And I want to mention the Good Food Fighter is on the internet. Check it out. She has a website and a blog, and she also has a comic strip that's come out. And stay tuned for more comics, and subscribe to her blog. The Good Food Fighter does not financially benefit from any of the recommendations and reviews, and is not affiliated with any company or any food manufacturer. So,
goodfoodfighter.com, and I'm also on Instagram, The Good Food Fighter.
Thank you.